All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going on to section 3, which is the rat park experiments. So early research in the 1970s used rats to experiment with substance dependency. The goal was to understand how addictions formed. So rats were placed into a lonely cage with two water bottles, one with drinking water and one with water that contained heroin, morphine, and other substances. The rats could select either bottle at any time. So the conclusion from these studies was that the rats chose to use the drugged water to the point of heavy addiction and eventually died of malnutrition. It was seen as proof that substances are as irresistible to animals as humans and that drug use was uncontrollable. What a lot of people don't know is that then in the same decade, Bruce Alexander and his colleagues developed the rat park experiments. They proposed that rats were using the drugged water due to their conditions, lonely cages. So they developed Rat Park, which was an enclosure filled with company, food, play, exploration, and everything that a rat could want and need. And the rat still had access to the drugged water. The conclusion from his experiments, the rats chose not to use the drugs. Alexander even took the experiments another step. He had the rats use drugs for 57 days in the lonely cage until they became heavily addicted, and then he placed them into Rat Park. All of his rats tapered themselves off the drugs and lived the rest of their lives drug free. So, early research led us to believe that addiction forms in a stereotypical fashion. An individual uses a substance, such as heroin, for weeks and months on a regular basis. There's chemical hooks in these substances, so their bodies begin to need the substance. Their body becomes physically dependent on it, and addiction has formed. But what Rat Park experiments have shown us is that there is a lot more to addiction than just the chemical dependency. So I'd like to do a little bit of a brainstorming exercise with you guys called Brainstorming Our Cage. And in a minute, I'm going to hop over to a whiteboard. But these are two questions to think about. What are some substances that you can think of? And what are some parts of your everyday life? All right, so let's jump over into our whiteboard. So, what are some substances that everyone can think of?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Absolutely. Alcohol. Well, what's another substance you guys can think of? Oh, looks like our bubble needs to get a little bit bigger here.
Nicotine.
Oh, kind of lost ourselves there. Nicotine. Yes, nicotine is very common. All right. What about some other substances you can think of?
Methamphetamine.
Meth, yes. Meth is actually very common in rural areas, believe it or not. All right, so meth. Any other substances you can think of?
Caffeine.
Caffeine, yes, absolutely. All right, we got caffeine in here. We're missing a big one that marijuana, yes. People tend to be reluctant to put that one up there as well as alcohol. And I'm going to abbreviate if you guys don't mind because our bubble is very small. Marijuana.
Opioids as well.
Opioids, absolutely. Opioids. Opioids would include prescription medications such as prescription pain relievers and heroin on the streets. All right, so that's fairly all encompassing. So now, what are some aspects of everyday life? Just normal everyday life.
Work.
Oh, yes, work is a large one, isn't it? So we'll put work, career, and school in one bubble. It's a little hard to see here. All right, so work, career, school. What's another aspect of everyday life?
Being a parent or a child.
Absolutely. So how about we put family and home in a category? Absolutely. Family and home are a big part of our waking lives. What's another aspect? Normal everyday life.
Friends or acquaintances.
Absolutely. That would be our social category, which our social category and our family and home category, they kind of intertwine. Family is, you know, your immediate family members, people that live in your home, versus the social category kind of expands on that a little bit more to include maybe neighbors, coworkers, even your favorite gas station attendant. So there's a couple more common aspects of life.
Entertainment.
Yes, absolutely. Recreational. The recreational category is pretty broad. That can include everything from hobbies, pastimes, to things that you do outside of the house, like going bowling or to the movies. Absolutely. There are two more very common aspects of life, and I'll give you one of them, and that's spirituality. Now, spirituality is not religion. Religion is a very narrow run of spirituality. And then there is one more aspect of just everyday life, things that we do on a regular basis.
Political.
Lately, yes. This would be your health category. These are the things that you do every day to take care of your physical and mental health. And you can even include your hygiene into these. So what's the point in our little thought exercise? Well, it's this. We hear often in prevention that using these things in here will affect these things out here, right? You've heard that if you abuse alcohol, that you could lose your job, you'll have no money, or your friends and family might disown you. Well, that's true. But what Rat Park Experiment showed us is that this relationship is actually reciprocal. That means that these things out here in your aspects of life, this is your cage. And the condition of those and how you perceive them will make a difference in whether or not you will ever use or abuse substances in this circle and what. So there is a difference, though, between rats and us. As complex creatures, our cages are even larger than their cages are. And it can include outside runs, such as media or community, your policies and laws in your area. Do you have any questions about this part so far?
No.
No? All right. So I want to jump back into our slide presentation and move on. Okay. Looks like we lost part of our slides there. Okay, so this has led us to the theory of the wheel of addiction. So basically, this shows us a lot of what we just brainstormed. In the center here, you would have your drug or your behavior of choice. And in the outside of this wheel are all those aspects of life, showing that each of these has a reciprocal relationship. On the outside of this, you'll see that we have things such as media, laws and policies, stigma, and even culture that also affect our personal cages and your perception of it. The way that you perceive your cage matters. For example, if an individual has depression, they can have a great job, a supportive family, but seeing the world through the lens of depression, they still see that world as a war zone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So far, so good. So it is a two-way street. The relationship between substance abuse and behavioral addictions and the aspects of your life each influence one another. So we'll go into some of the categories. Your home and family, for example. This can include your family history, predisposition, your environment growing up, and even genetics. The health of your relationships with your immediate family and the state of your living situation, your physical home, daily chores, can all affect whether or not you will be drawn to any substance or behavioral addictions. Your social expands on your immediate family to include extended family relationships. It also includes close friends, even social media friendships, coworkers, neighbors, and others in your community. Your social activities and the health of these relationships will also affect future potential for addiction. Your work, career, and school. This includes your choice of work, education level, and or your current school status, grades, etc. Your finances are part of this category. So your current socioeconomic status or income level, debts, bills, savings, and spendings. There's been a great deal of research that's been done trying to figure out whether or not there are specific individuals that are more prone to substance abuse or more at risk. And in all of the research so far, the only aspect of life that had a very significant relationship to substance abuse was actually your socioeconomic status. The income level, what they've noticed is that individuals with a lower income tend to be more prone to substance abuse and addiction. You guys have any ideas on why that might be?
People who are in poverty or in, in more difficult living situations tend to have closer relationships with mental disorders, things like depression and anxiety. A lot of the times it revolves around not being able to make your bills or your car payments or whatever.
Absolutely. There's a lot of stressors in lower income families that are not present in higher income. So your recreational or what you do for fun or in your free time. This is, as we said, a broad category that includes hobbies, pastimes, crafts, and side projects. And it also includes activities outside of the home, bowling, movies, or coffee with friends. Now, your activities, what you do for fun, can be directly related to substance abuse. For example, an individual with a severe alcohol use disorder might only select those activities in which drinking is allowed. One of my cases, for example, the case of Bob, he told me that one of his lowest times in his addiction, he missed his oldest son's last football game in high school because he couldn't figure out a way to sneak beer into the stadium. So that's an example of how that reciprocal relationship works. Are you hanging out places that always serve alcohol? Is every one of your recreational activities tied to some form of substance abuse? And vice versa. Are you purposely selecting activities in which you're able to use this substance or this substance might enhance them? And then your health. Your health includes three main aspects. This is your physical health. So pre-existing conditions, wellness checkups, injuries or illnesses, diet and exercise, and even hygiene can be included in this. And then there's your mental health, daily routines, attending counseling appointments, the existence of any pre-existing mental health conditions such as depression. But it also includes things like meditation, journaling, and deep breathing, the things that you do on a regular basis to take care of your mental health. And I'd like to give an example. It's morning, your alarm goes off, you wake up, everybody goes to the bathroom. That's always their first one. What is the first thing that you do after that?
Usually get ready for my day, shower, get ready for work.
You're a morning shower person. I'm cold in the mornings. You will never catch me getting into a shower in the morning until my body temperature has gone up. Carol, what's the first thing you do after using the restroom? What's the first thing you do in the morning?
I make coffee and then I sit down to meditate.
Awesome. Are you one of those don't talk to me until I've had my first cup type of people?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's flip the thought for a second. It's the end of the night. You're trying to wind down from the day. What do you do to kind of prepare yourself to fall asleep and relax?
I actually have an app on my phone that does like sounds, like just like rainfall, things like that. And I usually turn that on to kind of just like flush my brain.
Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Carol,
I'm similar. I use some type of music to fall asleep to.
Okay. Rhea, what do you do at the end of the night to wind down and fall asleep?
Nothing. I just close my eyes and think, bro.
The days when you could just lay your head down and that was it.
Um,
Okay, well, thank you, Maria, for that answer.
uh-huh.
So, what we're talking about here is our daily routines, our morning routine, which winds us up and gets us ready for the day, and our night routine, which winds us down and basically releases us from the day. These little things are taking care of your mental health on a regular basis. Another way that we might do this is driving to and from work. You might be blasting your favorite music or your favorite podcast. All of these little things are mental health routines that we don't actually think about until they're gone. Like, for example, if you woke up one morning and the power was out, no coffee, maybe a cold shower that day, kind of leaves you feeling off the rest of the day, doesn't it? So these things are part of our everyday aspects of life. And if you have someone who has a severe addiction, for example, a lot of these things are replaced. If you have someone who has alcoholism, eventually the alcohol will say, you don't need a cup of coffee. You're going to wind up with me. You don't need that at the end of the night. You're going to relax with me. Just have a beer and you'll be good. And so you can see how the relationship and the balance works between these aspects of your life. And then hygiene is also affected. Your daily self-care, such as bathing, brushing your teeth, how you dress and style your hair. These are all reciprocal relationships with a substance abuse or behavior of choice. So the final run is spirituality. Now, as I said, religion is an example of the ways in which people practice spirituality, but it's only a narrow run of it. This is considered a boundaryless, vast set of human subjective experiences that focus on the spirit or the soul. Subjective means these are experiences that are personal to you, only you share these. This includes attitudes, values, and practices that motivate you at your deepest level. So, as I had said, there's a bigger picture with us than there is with rats. We have broader cages, so to speak. This includes media and social media, the health and condition of your community, your state, even your nation, the stigmas in your area surrounding substance abuse and treatment, laws and policies, such as treatment available in your area and addiction being seen as a criminal activity, and your culture, both your immediate culture and broader beliefs, values, traditions, and behaviors in your immediate area. So, for example, we'll look at laws and policies. Laws and policies determine how many treatment centers will be available in an individual's area. When an individual finally comes to the conclusion that, yes, they do need help and they have an addiction, there is what research calls a very small window of time where this individual is motivated to seek treatment. Now, imagine if this individual lives in an area where the laws and policies say, we don't mean that many treatment centers, and this very motivated individual is placed on a wait list. The chances that that individual will still have that motivation when they're called off that wait list is very low. Another example, the health of your community. If you are a youth or an adolescent and you're living in an impoverished area, see, we're going back to that socioeconomic status again. So you live in a very crime-ridden area. You ride the bus home from school and you have to run from the bus stop to your front door because your neighborhood is extremely dangerous. And you come home to maybe a single parent household where you have to make your own dinner. You have to be motivated to do your homework, and you go to bed with no one else there. These types of lifestyles, these types of aspects in our cage directly affect whether or not an individual will have a substance abuse problem in adulthood. Any questions on this part so far? Or any epiphanies of how you've seen maybe how these could relate? What about social media? How do you guys think social media, such as like Facebook, could affect whether or not a person will become addicted to something?
I guess this is kind of a very broad example, but our like medias that we consume, things like TV shows and music, um, a lot of people are starting to use drugs and things like that because a culture is being created around that where, you know, doing drugs is cool, or drinking is cool, or it's like a socially accepted thing and you should be doing it with other people. So that gets passed around on social media, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if you're an adolescent and you see all these posts of that people are putting up where they're at parties and they're doing a particular kind of drug and everyone looks cool and they look like they're all having fun and everything is great and joyful, I mean, that can definitely motivate you to, hey, I want to try that drug. So yeah, social media can have a direct influence. So in summary from this section, we examined how cages can affect our substance abuse, the way we perceive it, how it can influence us, and how understanding our cage is a key part of self-awareness. Our cages share a reciprocal relationship with addiction through risk and protective factors. Substance abuse and addiction can directly affect aspects of our lives. We also recognize what drugs and behaviors of a choice are currently in our life and who has control. So before you continue on to the next module, please review the additional resources for this section, including the Shared Cages book that you were provided. Complete exercise 2, examining your cage, and complete quiz 3. When this is done, move on to module 4, changing cages.